Hi all. Today is July 5th and we have our regular TOC meeting. So first of all, congrats to all US colleagues with the Independence Day. And it's great to see so many of you on this call, which was totally unexpected. But yeah, nice to see you here. So let's see what we have on our agenda today. So we have good news and more good news, and we have some agenda topics. Okay, first of all, the governing board has completed their cycle of elections. So as you know, we were refreshing the governing board through elections, extended terms, etc. So now this iteration is fully completed. So this was the state of the board before July 1st. And now with the pull request, we actually get a few updates. So first of all, please welcome Robert and Tracy to the TOC. So Tracy was a member of the governing board before. I'm not sure about Robert. Did he have any official positions in the CDF? No, but yeah, welcome Robert too. And yeah, congrats Melissa with being elected for another term. So now you're going to stay with us for another 2 years. And congrats. So by the time of the next elections, you will be the longest serving TOC member. Okay, other news. So yeah, so there were announcements that Lore LaRusso was elected as a new CDF Outreach Committee lead. Before we had a lot of conversations between members of the TOC and Outreach Committee that we could have better communication between the entities. And yeah, here's our opportunity to do that. And actually, even last week, there was a public call to all ambassadors and believe TFC members too to join the feedback meeting. And maybe, Laurie, if you could introduce yourself and speak a bit about what you want to do with the outreach committee, it would be great for the rest of the team.
Awesome. Thank you, Oleg, for inviting me to this. And first, let me just apologize. I was a late addition, and I obviously am at a lunch spot here in North Carolina. So I'm on the East Coast. I'm in the U.S., so it's noon. So as Outreach Committee Chair, my first kind of action was just to get feedback and to listen to all of the other committees, projects, as many people as we can before we sort of regroup and reset and move forward with plans for the rest of 2022 into 2023. I think that is essential to make sure that we're all aligned and on the same page, and that other organizations and members understand the value of the CDF and also the value and the benefit of having an outreach committee. Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry, it's loud. So I work for JFrog, and I've been in marketing for years, working with developers. So again, I think like my main goal was just to kind of listen to the feedback. And as a person that was on the outreach committee for the last year or so, my feedback was very similar to the feedback that we got, which was there doesn't seem to be a process of communicating back and forth from the membership to what's actually happening within the CDF. Also, what is the process of the CDF communicating out to the public and to the members, like what's going on within the organization. In addition, like I think, you know, Oleg, he brought up me joining these calls and maybe having an additional call where we talk about what you guys have discussed and different ways to communicate that within the organization itself. And again, like to see if there's avenues for press releases, blog posts, things like that. So I'm really excited to be in this position after having been on the outreach committee for, like I said, a little over a year. And I'm really looking forward to all of your feedback and anything to help move everything forward and in the right direction where everything is open, transparent, and the projects know what we're doing. We know what the projects are doing. We know what you guys are doing, and we're pushing that out. So I'm going to go on mute so y'all don't hear the crazy.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. And yes, if you're interested, there is outreach committee channel on the CDF Slack. So this is the venue where you can discuss everything, including ideas, maybe some feedback on common tools, well, including Bevy. So this is definitely a channel you could try. And yeah, the next meeting I will also ask Robert and Tracy to make some introduction. So Tracy is not on the call today, I believe, because of the public holiday. And yeah, Robert has some issues with Bevy. Again, not unusual. So maybe next time. So welcome everyone to the board, and welcome to the TUC, and welcome Lori to the outreach committee. So looking forward to working with you. Any other news we need to discuss before we proceed? I guess not. Okay, so the next topic on the agenda is the CDF TOC chair election process. Yeah, I'll share my screen and show what we have at the moment. But yeah, there is some uncertainties in the election process. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
There it comes.
Okay. So basically, for the TOC chair, we don't have a clear process at the moment. So we already had a discussion with Fatih that we would update these documents. But yeah, right now the TOC, I believe, yeah, so we annually elect a chairperson to preside over meetings, set the agenda, ensure meeting minutes are taken, and represent the TOC governing board. But there is no clear election process, etc. So last time we did the elections in August. And yeah, my assumption by default is that I would stay in this role until August, but this is something I wanted to confirm explicitly because it's basically misaligned with elections. So the question to the team is whether you see this date or whether you would like to see another date for the TC chair change.
I think just doing it in August like last time worked pretty well. So I have no objections to that. I think it makes it easy.
Yeah, so it may create some problems only if the TUC chair steps down from the TUC during the elections. But I think we can solve this issue when we get there. So for these elections, it shouldn't be a problem, and I'll probably ask Michelle to organize the elections. And it means that it's time to think whether you would like to take this role or no. So personally, I'm probably ready to continue if needed, but I am not mentally attached to this role at all. So if anyone wants to step up, I'm totally happy to support your nomination.
So would we just do a self-nomination, or do we have to have somebody else nominate?
I think self-nomination would be fine because the TUC is just a limited group of people. So if you want to encourage someone else to send a nomination, please do so. But yeah, generally, we don't need a formal process because it's not a wide election, it's just us. So you don't need abstracts or justification because, well, there is public track of contributions, etc. And yeah, I think the process can be lightweight. We will just need to set up a poll.
That works.
So should I take an action, Oleg, to talk with Michelle so she can start nomination period on TOC mail list, like how it happened last year? I checked the mail list and I found out nominations happened between July 20th and August 3rd, and the voting happened between August 10th and August 15th. So if those days make sense, I can talk with Michelle and then get this started after next TOC meeting, which is on July 19th.
Yeah. I think the election timeline last year made total sense. So for us, the only problem is to do it when basically the vacation period is over. So, but yeah, I think that even if somebody from the TOC goes on vacation, if there is 1 or 2 weeks period to cast the votes, it's enough time to just log in and submit the votes. One thing to keep in mind is that, for permissions, etc., it would be better to have a checklist what needs to be done. So it's probably a subject for me, you, Fatih, and Michelle to prepare, because what happened last time, we had no idea where things need to be changed. So, for example, I wasn't on the governing board mailing list, I believe, until April. And I didn't know about the existence of this mailing list. So things like that. I have notes, so I will convert these notes to the pull request.
So then 19th of July 20th is the nominations when they can be kicked. So 19 could be a good time to look at the election timeline together with the guideline, or like your notes, so everyone can see the timeline and the whatever responsibilities and other things. And then if there is no objection during the meeting on 19th, then we can kick off the election period on 20th.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Anything else regarding the elections? Okay, then thank you. And then, I wanted to follow up on the projects joining the CDF. So at the last meeting, we had 2 projects which we discussed. Unfortunately, we have no recording for this presentation. So, my apologies for that, because I was unable to join on time. And then basically you need to be a host to click the recording button. This is actually something we will discuss later. But what is outcome is that we had 2 projects presenting, and my understanding that at least for Persia, so the presentation we had at the last meeting is considered the presentation which happens as a part of the application. Is it correct from your point of view, or would you expect another presentation to be made to wider group before we vote?
I think, so Hendrik, correct me if I'm wrong, but Persia did the presentation to the TOC, and then there was another second presentation to the working group, the supply chain working group.
Yeah, so we did a brief presentation at the TOC just to give an overview, and then we did a deep dive in 2 days later, I think, at the supply chain working group. And that is recorded. If not, at least the slides I have uploaded. Right, Fatih?
Yeah, so
recording is not on YouTube yet, but I will get it uploaded to YouTube and then share the link on TOC mail list as a Slack, so you can everyone can see.
And then also, I think there's a PR out there that has the full proposal, and all that, all the good details.
So basically our template, so it follows the template which was updated in the beginning of this year by Steven and me. So the application is here, everyone can check it. And basically, if we talk about the incubating project, so the preconditions for starting the vote is having the application check, having the presentation also check. So my question to the team is whether we want to do some public comment period, because I believe that everyone needs to take some time and to understand whether all of us are on the same page. And specifically, I would be interested to get summary from the TOC members and from the SIG members about any concerns they discovered during the reviews.
Yeah, so I think we should open up comments for like a week against the pull request, and then after a week, we if we don't see anything that is a red flag or anything like that, that we go ahead and do a mail list vote. If there is somebody that has concerns, that then we bring it up those concerns on the following TOC meeting, which I think is, Fateh, you said the 19th. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
So
for
that's-
19th, we already. So for 19th, I've already created meeting invite. So, and it should be in your calendars. Yeah, I agree that we are basically ready to start the discussion. So personally, I haven't reviewed proposal yet, but we have 2 TOC sponsors. We have the presentation, so all the formalities are done. Yeah, I see no problem.
I think this would be a really good exercise for the new TOC members too, is to review this. But can you give an example of what a red flag would be to look for?
I think something like a maybe something to do. We've run into this before with like trademarks around images, those type of things that we've run into in the past is something that we may need to figure out how to proceed on something like that. That'd be an example that I would foresee. I don't think this project has those, so.
Yeah, so there are some criteria listed in the project lifecycle document. So there are requirements, expectations, etc. But basically, if you talk about an incubating project, everything is very relaxed. So of course there might be concerns raised, for example, feasibility of the project being fit for the foundation and its scope. I believe it's not a concern in this particular case. So yes, basically we can just go through these requirements, and as Melissa said, we can just go through that quite formally, so that we see whether after the updates the process looks okay, or whether there are any other obstacles. Because yeah, there are still some interesting things like this one. Yeah, probably needs some explanation, but yeah, otherwise I think that it's really straightforward right now. So for me, yeah, I'm just +1 for starting the discussion. So maybe 1 week. Yeah, if it's silent, then we can even extend it by another week and vote shortly after July 19th. But I think we can target late July, early August for final decision.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, so one question, yeah, is basically PR, etc. But yeah, I guess this is something to discuss with Lore. So if the foundation has some bandwidth in the beginning of August, then yeah, it would be also nice to set a tentative date, etc. But yeah, it's outside of the scope for the TOC per se.
Yeah, and just so you know, they're like, Black Hat North America is in August. So depending on when this gets released, there's opportunities to get additional push at bigger conferences that JFrog is supporting, just so that and other members, it would be good to see what other members are supporting to get the full outreach push for a new project being added. So yeah, the closer we are to a decision, the more we can put things under embargo and then get other members and see where they're going involved and have a full scale onslaught.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, if there are reasons to facilitate the process. So I'm not 100% sure that Black Hat is the main venue for this project, but why not?
Well, if we look at like what's happening in August is just Black Hat, and then I think September is kind of I don't really know what's happening in the US in September. I'm not sure if there are things
There will
happening in
be
EMEA.
DevOps World. I believe JFrog will be also
that's right.
sponsoring.
Okay, and then there's KubeCon North America in October. So we could have not just highlight Persia, but like highlight all the projects at KubeCon. I'm not exactly sure where we're at on like in terms of maybe sponsoring or not, but there are tons of member organizations that will be at KubeCon, and so to give them all sort of like a cheat sheet on like what's happening within the CDF and they're a member would be good to do. To highlight all of the great things that are happening. So for sure, like those are things we should do like on the standard whenever there's big sort of community events happening.
Okay, so we have a plan. Yeah, actually, while we're talking about project life cycles, so hi Andrea, I wanted to ask how we are doing with Tecton. Does the project still plan to apply for graduation, or is it on hold for now?
Which project, Oleg?
Tecton.
Oh, Tecton.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've not discussed about it actively much. Can you hear me?
And we're still waiting for the security review to happen, right?
Sorry, looks like my laptop. I don't know, maybe it's I have a bad connection, but yeah, no, the security audit it happened, so that's done, and it went quite well for Tecton. In fact, we initially started it with Tecton pipeline, and then we expanded the scope to another couple of projects because they could not find really any significant issue in the core one, so that was good.
I'm jealous.
And we are currently focusing on getting our 1.0 version out of the released, so kind of 1.0 API for the core project. Yeah, and I think that's our current main focus, and I think that should enable us to get closer to the graduation process. But yeah, I need to review that.
Thank you. And yeah, sorry for, I just thought about Tecton because we have 2 items on the roadmap. So I will update the status according to what you said.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you too. And another project that presented 2 weeks ago is Directive.
Yeah, so last meeting, Directive did not present, but they've reached out to me about coming under the CD Foundation, and I'm working with Willem from Directive to get them working on their proposal documentation and the whole process. So they're probably a month behind Persia.
Okay, which is perfectly fine. And yeah, thanks a lot for driving that. So basically preparing the proposal.
Correct. Preparing a proposal and all the formal things like a presentation.
Yeah, so for Directive, actually, do we have a special interest group which would be an umbrella for that?
It would fall under CD events.
Mm-hmm.
They are an event-driven orchestration tool, and they have presented to the CD events group, I believe, and also I know they've presented to Ortelius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm quite familiar with the directive. I'm a bit surprised that they go to the CDF instead of the CNCF. I'm not sure, maybe they already applied to the CNCF before, but well, for us it's good. And let's make sure that we talk about the opportunities.
Yeah, I think they, from what I understand, is they feel that the CDF has more opportunities for them than being in the CNCF since it's so large.
I can totally understand. But someone trying to get captain through the CNCF, which is also event-driven orchestration tool. Yeah. So, well, let's support the team and see how we can move it forward. Yeah, I think that would be nice for us. So anything else regarding project membership, or should we go forward?
I just have a quick question. Is there an onboarding process for new members of the TOC? Because Robert's definitely like kind of stuck in this little bit of bevy hell, and I'm just wondering, like, is that something like that we should look into? Just in terms of like onboarding in general, like for each like committee, and because we had talked about bevy, I'm sorry, like in the outreach committee meeting being like not something that a lot of groups know to use, and so just general question, is there like an onboarding?
I do not think there is a onboarding checklist. At least there was no one for TOC chairs, and I believe for TOC members too in the beginning of the previous election cycle. We did some updates, but well, basically it's just best effort. So going through the updates, and maybe you can start this checklist so that for the next iterations it becomes easier. But right now we definitely like onboarding guidelines for the foundation officials.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Because yeah, I just added you to some Slack channels I'm aware about when your new role was announced. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that we do not even have a list of these channels which are related to outreach committee. There were some private channels. Well, for example, ambassadors channel is private, community builders channel is private. There may be other private channels I have no idea about. So right now it's just sacred knowledge, and maybe reaching out to Garima and Tracy would be a good step, just to double check whether anything is missing.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Yeah. But you definitely need to get access to the mailing list, because outreach committee has a mailing list. I'm not sure how meetings happen right now. I guess it's still somewhere in Zoom. And well, for the rest, let's see. Okay, and actually this is a topic Fatih added recently. Yeah, guidelines for the community.
Yeah, exactly. Like the election process, like TOC chair election or other elections, or this onboarding process. I think we identified many similar things as well. Like, for example, Ankit and Christopher, they are with us. We have been discussing about AWS, Azure, cloud credits, or Bevy chapter leads. And I failed to find this information to help people. And then that triggered us to start working on creating guidelines on GitHub. And if you click the link on the CDF TOC meeting agenda, you will see, I think we created 6 or 7 issues to document all those things, like how to handle GSOC funding, like how the CDF awards work, and so on. And what we plan to do is we plan to add TOC team on GitHub as default reviewer of all these guidelines, because you deal with most of those things day to day, because you contribute to project 6 and so on. And if you could review those documents as they appear on GitHub, that would be awesome. So we can know that whatever we documented covers all the information needed by the community. And we can include the guidelines about onboarding to TOC and so on as part of our work, and perhaps send that document to TOC repo, and then you can review that document under TOC repo, because the documents we start creating mainly involve with CDF stuff, permissions like GSOC stuff, funding, and so on. But yeah, all those things will start appearing soon this week. And then we appreciate if you review them and add your feedback directly on the pull requests.
The one comment I would like to add on that is, when we do these documents, since they're scattered across different repositories, if there's a way we can push them up to the website, so we can find them. So, visiting 4 different repos to get the information that you need can be difficult.
Yeah, I can answer this question. So actually, we have in Captain, we have a Google Summer of Code project that targets building documentation as code site for Markdown-based projects. So we heavily use Markdown, not ASCII Doctor. And for ASCII Doctor, there is a project called Antora that supports building a documentation site from multiple repositories, including various references, etc., which is super handy if you want to build anything as code. And Dokuzaros with some plugins does the same for Markdown. And currently, our contributor creates a documentation engine. The POC is already ready if someone is interested. So it's basically a static website. So I could talk to Rajiv, this is a student, and see whether we could just contribute this engine. Well, it's quite simple because it's mostly a combination of tools plus GitHub Actions. But there is, there are a few problems with it. So one of the problems is just our CD Foundation website, because currently it's managed by CMS. So there is no way anyone can contribute. And we hit these issues, like Shipwright was waiting for something like half a year to be added to the site. I'm not sure whether we have already added CD events, maybe. But for me, it's one of major impediments, because if you want to have foundation with open ecosystem, being able to contribute to the website is super important.
Yeah, and Persia uses Docusaurus for their website, running off of the GitHub Markdown, and Ortelius uses Hugo to render its Markdown.
Yeah, and there is also a question, comment from Ankit in the chat about Hugo. So Hugo is great if you want to have one site in one repository. It's perfect for that purpose. You put GitHub action, GitHub page, connect a domain, it works. But it's not helpful when you have multiple repositories with documentation. There is no plugins for Hugo for that. There is no tooling like macros, cross-references, etc. And actually, Dokuzaros is better about it. It's still not perfect. So compared to Antora, which is rather a professional cloud-native documentation management tool, Dokuzaros is rather pretty simple. But if we just talk about documentation, not the entire website, I think it would do the job for us.
And if we, from the Ortelius standpoint, for us to convert over to Docusaurus, it would not be a very large lift. So we could actually add that to the Ortelius roadmap if we want to go that route. And it's just basically plugging in a new engine.
Yeah. So in our case, so in Captain, we call it a new engine, but actually it's not that much on the site. It's rather tooling like automation, linting, etc. So basically having everything in a single package so that it can be reused.
Yeah.
So this website topic, this came up before as a CD Foundation, and it is one of the things, maybe not coming months, but yeah, we'll definitely reach out to you, Oleg, and Terry, you are using Hugo for best practice website, and Steve, I can reach out to you about Docker service or whatever other options out there when we come to that point.
Yeah, keep me on that
But
list.
for time being, maybe we can introduce another section on the CDF website community place, which I put the link on the chat as guidelines, because if you join the community webpage, there could be another chapter or heading there saying guidelines, like guidelines or whatever
Or
guidelines.
maybe
we
just
have.
another domain like docs.cd foundation.
Yeah, that is an option. Yes, I can check this with Oxan. She will be back next week. Cool. So yeah, just again another heads up. You will receive notifications from GitHub for reviewing pull requests of those guidelines I mentioned. Please review them so we make everyone's lives better with having guidelines available. And please also contribute to them if you see anything missing in the guidelines, or if you find a better way of doing something we described there.
Okay, so I think that's nice. And yeah, on my side, I will update the TOC team on GitHub today, so that everyone will get invites. If you are still not a member of the CD Foundation GitHub organization, please monitor your inbox. You should get an invitation email. Okay, any comments before we proceed? Then more logistics topics. Bevy and GitHub.
Yes. So after what happened during previous meetings, because we couldn't record the meeting because there weren't any hosts in that meeting, thanks Oleg for highlighting that. I went through Bevy. Unfortunately, I couldn't find our TOC members on Bevy, and the ones I found didn't have their profiles complete, so I was only able to add Emil and Melissa. So please, all the TOC members, go to Bevy, sign up if you haven't signed up yet, and complete your profile so we can add you as hosts or lead organizer on Bevy. And if any of you need to run the meeting, you can click the record button and do other fun stuff with Bevy. So that was the blocker. That's why we only have 5 or 4 hosts in this meeting, not everyone.
Can you drop the link to the right place for Bevy?
Okay, let me find that.
Whenever you have a chance.
Yes, yeah, I will put it there. And relate that similar issue is valid for GitHub. I am not able to find all the TOC members on GitHub. Maybe I don't know all your GitHub handles. So it would be great if you can add your GitHub handles on the Google Doc, the TOC meeting agenda doc, so we can see who are the members.
I think actually it makes sense to just put it on README.
Yeah.
Because so I always had concerns about this list because it doesn't show all the affiliations, and also it's no real way to understand who it is. Well, I mean, you can probably find some people on LinkedIn, but it's let's say I'm not sure, John Jones or something like that, with a lot of people being discovered. It's difficult. Plus, I think that it would be important to highlight all the affiliations because it's important. And according to our charter, we talk when we talk about the prevention of conflict of interest, etc. We talk about all the affiliations, not just your employer. So, for example, when we started the Open Feature project, there we explicitly added multiple fields. So, person, organization, other affiliations, GitHub username, and we also added GitLab username. because GitHub, even if it's industry standard, many people use GitLab. So if you are fine with that, we could try to introduce a table like that. But in such a case, I would have to ask everyone to fill in other affiliations, because right now it's hard to say what other affiliations some people have.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I think that'll help clarify a lot of things.
Yes, so Baby and GitHub, if you could complete your profiles. I just put the link to edit profile thingy on Baby.
So you're fine with it, I will take this section item, and I will bug people about your GitHub IDs, because I will need them to manage this team anyway.
That's all I think from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. So just a quick update on TOC budget allocation. So for 2021 budget, we agreed to use CD events. Yesterday there was a discussion, and we discussed potential projects. So there are a few items like creating a visualizer for CD events or extending documentation. So we will be agreeing on the final scope, but hopefully there will be a project launched later this year. My question to the team is about 2022 budget. So firstly, my question is whether we want to have it, because if so, I or somebody will have to go to the governing board and ask whether we have it. Anyone?
Yeah, I think it would be nice to have the budget, but yeah, we need to have ideas to go along with it, I guess.
Yeah.
You could just give me a bunch of money and I'll figure out how to spend it.
Well, but you have to spend the money in the vendor neutral and in project neutral way.
I could still do that.
Okay. But yeah, so I will ask the governing board what we do for this year. Then, well, if you get the money, it would be nice if we allocate to them quickly, so not like it happened with 2021. Because we discovered about this budget something like in December. Then we had no idea how to use it. There was tentative agreement about CD events, but we have never really used this money. And it's already July.
Do we need to have all projects take a look at what they need for their a possible budget?
So there are basically two budgets. So one is general CDF, well, actually even more budgets. Maybe Fatih, you could explain this better than me.
I am learning as well, Oleg. So like if we talk about TOC, I think TOC has, it was 10K last year, as you said,
10K.
Oleg. We learned it in December and we didn't have any idea how to spend it. So I think if TOC can think about this, Aaron, because like if we go to projects, then we'll get lots of ideas. Maybe TOC could do that as well, and then decide which of those ideas should be, funded. Because if you start talking about the broader budget, then things get very confusing, which is what I am right now, confused.
Personally, I would rather consider TOC budget as a stopgap measure. So if something happens, for example, we onboard a new project and want to facilitate some things within this year, we can use, for example, TOC budget for that. Or if there is a major initiative like CD events, which is important for all projects, and we want to facilitate it, it's also fair use. But it's not like we need to spend this money, let's say, on maintaining infrastructure for projects, etc., because there are other ways to get this money even within the CDF. And actually, most of the projects use these ways at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And I was wondering whether is there a breakdown of what the budget is usually on per project we can see, or so that we can know what is already included, and so that, I mean, if you're looking for ideas for a budget, we know, okay, it shouldn't be infrastructure because that's something that the CDF takes care of already.
So once we have a treasury committee chair, or whatever the role is called, it will become easier. Because
Okay.
yeah, right now we just do not have a person who would handle that, and I believe we have never had in the foundation. So it also creates some bandwidth issues.
All right. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, in general, I agree. We should not like saying, okay, we need like say infrastructure for this TOC budget. I think TOC budget should be, yeah, like you said, okay, if there is an emergency or like a new initiative, not emergency, or maybe something like in terms of interoperability between projects, any effort we can put in there, or helping project getting to yeah, kind of standard of quality that we expect for the next level to become integrated.
Great. Okay. But yeah, it's rather a heads up. So I take an action item to check whether we have budget for this year, and all ideas are welcome. And yeah, another organizational item about meeting times. So we have a lot of people participating at the meeting right now. But yeah, when we did a poll last time, we had a kind of white noise distribution. So we were unable to find any time where we could have the majority of TOC members participating. So basically, we just kept the previous time slot. So I'm going to try a doodle poll again, just to see whether there would be a better slot for contributors and TOC members. But if not, I think we just stick with this slot because yeah, we get a lot of people here. Okay, and then Jenkins X. So one from Chris and one from Ankit.
Yeah, hello. We got a report from James Rawlings, who was the earlier maintainer, about a security incident regarding some Jenkins X domains, and I finally made it to log into the issue site and saw what the issue was about. And there's actually like 5 domains which have some problem, vulnerable to subdomain takeover thing. And I never heard about them before, and I wonder if the CD Foundation has control over this.
I'm a bit surprised that the domain is owned by James, to be honest. Because if I recall the story correctly, when Jenkins X started, it was Kasuke and CloudBees initiating the thing. So I would assume that it's either owned by KK or CloudBees at the moment. But indeed, there has never been a transfer request for the domain. So I believe we transferred Jenkins 1, but for Jenkins X1, I do not recall any transfer procedures. I can actually check who owns it, but
okay, so I wonder, should we just leave it alone, or what should we do? I don't think these domains are.
What I would recommend, do you know Mark Waite? Do you know Mark Waite from CloudBees?
No.
Okay, I can make an introduction. So he's basically leading the community team. He also happens to be the last manager of James and caretaker of Jenkins X as a team owner. So I think he would be the best contact to reach out to see the ownership.
Great.
And when we transferred Ortelius's domain, it was actually pretty easy. We went to the Linux Foundation IT department, opened a Jira issue, and just worked with them to get the domain transferred over to the Linux Foundation, and they're now the owners of the Ortelius domain. And if we need like a subdomain created, we just open another issue and they'll create the subdomain and do all the DNS. They're really good about that on that front.
Yeah, no, we already did that for our main domain, but these are various combinations that are like with .com, .org, and with and without hyphen and so on. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's it from me.
Mm-hmm. I'm just checking domain records for Jenkins X. But yeah, several services just said that the domain is not found, so I'm a bit puzzled by now.
I think the domain is registered as owned by the Linux Foundation already, so but I'll give you the list so I can.
Okay.
I'll share it in the chat so I can have a look.
Okay.
Interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, we can get Mark involved. Yeah, and for first Jenkins X TOC and governing body meeting.
Yeah, so we are going to have that tomorrow. So we're just starting the process, and we will see how that goes. That was just something to say. That's it.
What's the official election for TOC and the governing board, or is it basically?
We are going to talk about those things tomorrow. I mean, trying to figure out what it should do, like who should be the members, things like budget, and having communication with the CDF, TOC, and all all those kind of stuff. So we will see how that goes, and let you know.
All the best.
Yep.
I think that this is the best step for continuing the project.
Yeah.
It has a small but quite active user base at the moment. So yeah, continuing community development would be really important.
Yes.
And well, yeah. So hopefully there will be some vendors joining, but there are many user-driven projects in open source, and they work quite well.
Yeah.
And I guess that's it for the today's agenda. So we spent almost 1 hour. Thanks everyone for your time. So for the next meeting, I suggest that we keep the current time slot regarding of the voting, and then for August we may change the time slot. And yeah, if there are any pressing topics, we always have each other. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you in 2
Bye-bye.
weeks.
Yeah, bye.